There aren't many better things in sports than a really, really good rivalry. The Penguins have the Flyers and Capitals, but doesn't it feel like there's a rival missing from that list? Hunter and I are going to talk about that and more on the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
Your Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Patrick Damp. You can find me on most social media platforms at synonym for wet. Joined as always by my friend who is coming to you live from the beach, Hunter Hodes. You can follow Hunter on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Also, make sure you're following the show on Twitter at LO_Penguins and on TikTok at Locked On Penguins. Today, it is Friday, which means we're handing the show back to you, the listeners, in another Fan Take Friday. We've got questions about the forward group, the upcoming season, potential trades, and so much more. We begin today's episode, though, Hunter, with something just a little bit different. This wasn't a Fan Take Friday question that was submitted, but it was inspired by someone who does listen to our show. I was talking with a friend of mine, a former colleague who just so happens to be a Columbus Blue Jackets fan. And he said to me, quote, I wish the Penguins and Jackets were actual rivals, not just geographical rivals, end quote. And at first I thought, wow, that's kind of sad for Blue Jackets fans, because I say that not being a jerk. I'm not talking down to them, because they are intensely loyal and they have not had a ton to cheer about throughout pretty much their entire existence. But then I thought more about it and I thought, you know what? It would be really nice to have an actual serious rivalry with the Blue Jackets, because Pittsburgh, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Columbus, same division. It's all right there. And Hunter, for the majority of this existence, they have pretty much just been the Penguins' little brother.
Yeah, I would say so as well. And yes, I'm at Virginia Beach spending time with some family for the next few days. So sorry for the weird setup in the trees in the background. But yeah, I have Columbus. They're not one of their biggest rivals. I'd say they're more of a pest than anything else. I'd have them obviously below Philadelphia, Washington. I think I'd have both the Rangers and the Islanders ahead of them. And then I'd kind of have Columbus, in that 5 range. If you want to argue that the Bruins are a bigger rival than the Blue Jackets, I really won't stop you, because there have been some pretty, big playoff series between those two teams over the years. And the 2 times that the Penguins have played Columbus in the playoffs during this era, Penguins, they've won both series. The second one, they absolutely crushed them in 5 games. That first one was honestly a pretty fun series. I felt like it would have been over, though, in 5 games if Marc-Andre Fleury didn't vomit all over himself in game 4 in Columbus, losing the puck behind the net. And we all know what happened there. From a Columbus perspective, obviously the Penguins are their top rival, closest team to them. You see the Penguins, the fans arrive in buses to literally every game, not the playoff games. There's still a decent amount of Penguins fans there, but for the regular season games, feels like, Pat, it's almost like a 60-40 split, even though I think Columbus has one of the most underrated fan bases in the league. They show out every year there. And, that's a testament to just how loyal those fans are in that market. So I would say from a Columbus perspective, easily the Penguins are the biggest rival, but from the Penguins perspective, I would say they're at least number 5 behind the 2 New York teams, Washington and Philly. And it's more of a big brother, little brother thing. Maybe that changes in the future, but that's kind of how I see it right now.
And you hit on something that I think is pretty important to this discussion. Columbus fans, if you have somehow found a way to this podcast today, this is not us insulting you. This is not us saying we think you stink. We think your team's awful. You guys are some of hockey's most loyal fans, because that management group, not so much the ownership, their ownership, as we've seen, is more than willing to spend money. Their management, however, over the past however many years, has not been very good. It seems like it's turning around now. It seems like they've got a pretty competent group there, but you guys show up and you show out. Every time I've gone to a game at Nationwide Arena, and I've gone a handful of times, it's a great atmosphere. It's an awesome arena. It's an awesome fan base, awesome people. I have nothing but good to say about the Blue Jackets fan base. And then the other thing that you hit on, there's only been 2 playoff series, and both of them, for the most part, the Penguins dispatched them pretty easily. It kind of feels like until we get a slobber knocker of a series between these two teams, it's just going to kind of go on this way. Even if you have, because I think you actually hit the word very correct, which is they're kind of pests to the Penguins, because we've had intense games against them throughout the seasons. We've had some blow up moments now and again, but it just feels like, and hopefully we can get it sometime over the next few years, an intense 6 to 7 game series. Every game's on a razor's edge. Both teams are deep in the fight. It just feels like we're missing that. And I think I speak for you when I say I kind of really want that.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. We still have to see when we would get it. You know, the Penguins right now, obviously in this transition phase, if people can hear the background noise, there's a couple fighter jets flying overhead. This is a huge Navy area, so that's just going to happen at any time of day around here. But, you know, Columbus, Pat, they're kind of in a weird phase as well, where you've seen the Zach Werenski trade rumors, and as of right now, they've gone away. But if Columbus does have a bad year this year, I could see those kind of starting back up again, just because he was really close to being traded to Dallas, and then he said, hey, actually, I want to stay in Columbus. It's good for now. You have the whole Marchenko rumors. We have to see what happens there. Montreal has been all over that when it comes to trying to pry Marchenko out of Columbus. I think he would make a lot of sense for them. But, you know, that's still a team that's building as well. So I think it's probably going to take a little bit of time before we see these two teams play in the playoffs again. Though, again, the 2 series we've seen, the 2014 one, I'd honestly say was better than the 17 one. The 17 one, there were games I felt where the Penguins were outplayed at times, but they got the saves, and they just had Sergei Bobrovsky's number. Anytime they had an offensive chance, puck was going in the back of the net. Very opportunistic in that series, and they quickly dispatched of them in 5 games. The 2014 one was honestly a really fun series. Again, it probably still ends in 5 if Fleury doesn't mess up in game 4, but you know, felt like we were a couple seconds away from that almost going to 7 games as well, because Penguins, Pat, decided to take off the final 10 minutes of the third period, and they thought the game was over. So that series was a lot more fun than the 17 one. I still felt the Penguins were going to win both the series, and they did. But I do want there to be like a banger of a series in there at some point, and hopefully, you know, we get it at some point here.
And I will say that 2014 series, correct me if I'm wrong here, Hunter, I believe one of the wins for the Blue Jackets was that Dubinsky overtime goal. And that arena, that crowd, that atmosphere was electric when he scored. And that felt like the moment where, you know, we might be getting something here between these two teams. But
believe that was Nick Foligno that scored it in game 4. Sorry.
It was one of those big guys that have always been a thorn in the Penguins' side when they were in the league. But that felt like we were just about to get to that point where there was going to be something between these two franchises.
Yeah, it was Nick Foligno. That's
Nick Foligno. Okay.
Check. Yeah.
But either way, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. You corrected me. That is very good. But
you did get the time goal right, though. Brandon Dubinsky tied it before Foligno won it.
I knew he scored in that game, but again, hopefully one day soon we can get this rivalry between these two franchises because it is so sorely needed. But that will do it for our opening segment. When we come back, it's truly time for Fan Take Friday. And there's a lot of questions about trades and some speculation about trades that we might see before the season begins. Hunter and I will jump into that when we come back right after this. But we've got to tell you about today's first sponsor before we do that, and that is Indeed. Support for today's show comes from Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When workplace chaos hits, you need the right hire. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you connect with employers and candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now, In the minute I have been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to their worldwide data. Usually the biggest difference isn't someone doing more work, it's having somebody who knows exactly what needs to happen and helps everything run smoother. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through all of the chaos, it's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at indeed.com/podcast. Just head to indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on this very podcast. One more time, that's indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed sponsored jobs. We're back here on the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp. That's Hunter Hodes coming to you live from the beach. And I wanted to start today's Fan Take Friday with an absolute banger from our pal Harrison Baldwin over on YouTube, because we did ask in our prompt about the forward group specifically, but as we always do, we don't limit the things to just one question or just one prompt. We want you guys to open it up and talk to us about whatever you have on your mind at that time. So Harrison says, not a forward, but I do think Dubas has set the Penguins up to trade Erik Karlsson before the season begins. They traded his partner and are currently blocking Brunick's rise to the main roster. If they move Karlsson, I think the pairs make a lot more sense with Girard and Korczak, TVR and Letang, Carlisle and Brunick. Obviously, losing Karlsson would make the team worse since he's the only elite D on the roster, but Dubas has left himself some wiggle room. I will say this. I do think Dubas and the Penguins have put themselves in position to one day before the end of this season move Erik Karlsson specifically to a Stanley Cup contender, because we'll say it for the trillionth time, that's not the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. And we know Erik Karlsson really wants to win a Stanley Cup before he retires. But when you look at the prospects in the system, the cap space, and what they're looking for, Karlsson does kind of fly under the radar as someone that maybe they could move.
Yeah. The thing with Karlsson is it's probably more, if he goes, it's probably more likely it happens around the trade deadline, especially if the Penguins are out of the race by then. My opinion, I think they're still going to be in the race. I think they're going to be in the race for the entire season, just based on where the roster is right now. I understand where Harrison's coming from. I just don't think they're going to do it at this juncture. Now, he's been traded in August before, so we do have that history. He was traded here in August a few years ago. But I think Dubas is comfortable with him going into this upcoming season, and I just don't think at this juncture they are going to do that right now. You trade him. I think the person who plays top pair minutes on the right side is going to be Chris Letang. I know that's going to scare quite a few people that listen to / watch the show. It probably should, considering that Letang's game has gone downhill quite a bit these last couple of years. But that's the reality situation, is that they're probably going to have Letang take those top pair minutes. In theory, you maybe want it to be Caden Korczak, but they're going to start him a little bit lower in lineup. I do understand his point about blocking Harrison Brunick on the right side. He's still going to be given a chance to make this team out of camp. Like even some of these people on the left side, their jobs aren't safe either. If he has a baller camp, a baller preseason, I think like Ben Kindle last year, they're not going to just block him. Hell, he made the team out of camp and preseason last year. Now, he only played 9 games because he struggled and then had to go back to junior for the rest of the year, then the AHL. But still, if he has a really great camp like last year, a great preseason, there's definitely a chance that he can make this team. And the good part is this year is that he doesn't have to go back to junior. He can just go right to the AHL, and you can have him keep developing there, and then he can potentially come up during the season. I also think, in theory, they probably don't mind that he potentially could start the season in the AHL, as weird as that may sound to people. The Korczak-Girard pair is something I'm really fascinated to see if they go through with that, because we've seen Girard Letang. It doesn't work. It's not very good. So if you say you keep Karlsson in that scenario, right? If you want to go Girard Korczak, are you going Declan Carlisle with Chris Letang kind of on that third pair, that would be intriguing. I would say you're probably still going TVR with Erik Karlsson on the top pair. At least, TVR can play both sides. Like, that's not really a problem for him. But that's kind of the pairs I'm looking at if they do keep Karlsson. Now, if they trade him, obviously it's a bit of a different story where I would say you'd see TVR and Letang on the top pair, and then you kind of go from there. Korczak, Girard, Carlisle, Brunick, for example. Again, I'm just throwing stuff out there, but I just don't think they're going to move Karlsson at this juncture before the season. I think if he gets moved, it's before the trade deadline if they're out of the race.
I do also like the idea of Korczak and Girard because, as I have said on this show, I do think we were a little too harsh on Girard. Not that it was totally undeserving. He was pretty underwhelming and disappointing as a Penguin, but I think it was multiple factors. I think one, as I've said multiple times, it was a combination of him being hurt, which we have heard multiple times, and the fact that he was so used to what Colorado did mid-season, moving to another team that plays an entirely different style, especially for a defenseman, is pretty difficult. I also think another factor in that is that, not making a one-to-one comparison here, but him and Letang play a similar kind of game. And we know that while a lot of conventional wisdom about the game, about positions and all that has been thrown out the window over the past few years, but one that does remain is defensive partners have to usually have styles that complement one another, not mirror one another. And with Girard and Letang kind of playing similar games, they were just both trying to do the same thing at the same time. So if someone like Korczak can be a little more stay at home, a little more, I'm making the defensive play, I'm making the first pass, and you can let Girard skate a little more, be a little more creative with the puck, I do think there could be something that I don't want to say there will be because Korczak has to earn it, has to show he can do it. But I am intrigued by that as a potential pair. The same thing goes for Karlsson and TVR. That kind of feels like you're just getting an older Parker Wotherspoon to play alongside Karlsson. And
and he's good defensively.
And we saw how well those two meshed last season. It was head and shoulders their best pairing all season long when both were healthy. Yeah. Here's one that I really wanted to get to before we head to break because it'll get us into the forward question, some other stuff. This one comes from another frequent flyer that we love on YouTube, someone on YouTube. Hot take: Koivunen clears waivers. I don't disagree, but maybe not for the reason I think most people will understand, or maybe it is the reason people will understand. I don't think right now, with that contract only beginning this year, there are going to be many teams who are going to want to take on an 8-year commitment from waivers. If he was signed to 3 or 4 years, there would not be a popsicle's chance in hell that he was going to clear waivers if he doesn't make the team out of camp. But I do think that someone on YouTube is right. If Koivunen does not make the opening night roster, he will start the year in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah, honestly, my take, I don't think that's a hot take. I think it's probably the likely take, honestly. The likely scenario that if they put him on waivers, he doesn't make the team. He's not going anywhere. Like, I agree. I don't think any team is really touching that right now. I think he would go back to Wilkes-Barre, play down there, come back up, et cetera, et cetera. So honestly, I just think that's the likeliest scenario. I wouldn't call it a hot take. I think it would be a hot take if he said that he wouldn't clear waivers and that someone would claim him. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's more, I don't want to say hot take. I think it's more not shock take, reactionary take, I guess, because you just signed him to that deal. So I think everybody, and rightfully so, everybody looks at it as, oh, this is their golden goose. They're not going to get rid of him, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, we've talked about the contract. It's the term is what is head scratching. Everything else around it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But yeah, I mean, I think overall that's a good place to leave it before we get into some more fan takes because we're running a little long here on this second segment. But we've got plenty more questions, plenty more talk about trades in the forwards, and we will do that when we come back right after this. We're finishing up the Friday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm Patrick Damp. That's my boy Hunter Hodes, who's coming to you live from the beach. And a lot of people put this one in our YouTube comments, so I'm just going to kind of condense it all into one. When it comes to the forward group, there is one name that everybody sees getting moved out before the season begins, and that is Justin Brazeau. And I agree, but I also disagree with the timing. I don't think he's going to get moved in preseason or training camp, simply because I think a lot of teams are going to want to see what Brazeau can do a little bit more, because you know it, I know it, everybody who follows this team knows it. The Justin Brazeau career trajectory is the same everywhere he goes. First couple years, kind of struggles. Third or fourth year, he explodes and becomes a really effective player. He started off the first half of last season white hot. And then injury obviously played a factor, but he trailed off the second half of the season. So I do think if he has another hot start to this year with Elmer Soderblom right there, you could package him up and you're not going to get a king's ransom for him. But between being on an affordable contract, being good depth, if there is a Stanley Cup contender out there that's a little bit up against it, needs someone to play in their bottom six, you could probably pry away a pick or two or maybe a prospect for Justin Brazeau.
It's probably either or. I don't think you're getting both.
I'm not saying you'll get both. I'm saying either or, but you're right.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's either a prospect or some sort of pick. You know, there was another comment, honestly, not really another comment, but Victor's channel actually makes a really good point as well. Many say Brazeau gets cut traded. I see Muse and company looking at this, seeing how effective he was in the first half of last season, saying, let's get that Brazeau back again. If he can get going again, that'll boost his trade value and then flip him. Honestly, I could see that happening as well, especially if he has a good camp in preseason, makes the team, and then kind of goes on his little, I wouldn't call it like a Linsandy run, but he was just on fire to start the first half of the season. Almost felt like at one point we were all joking about him winning the Rocket Richard because he was scoring, it felt like, on a nightly basis. But I still will say, you know, there is a chance of that happening, that he does make the team. He's one of the top 12 forwards. But I also still think of all the forwards, he's the most likely to get cut / get traded, if that makes sense, considering who is there, who they brought in, who is gone, who has extended this offseason. That's just kind of the way I see it. There was another comment about Nick Robertson potentially being dealt to Dallas at some point so he could play with his brother. I don't see that right now, considering the Penguins just traded for him and then gave him, a new contract. The only way I even see that as a potential happening is if he really struggles out of the gate. But again, Kyle Dubas is very familiar with Nick Robertson. I don't think that he's just going to give up on him after a couple of months. So want to throw that out there.
With Robertson, I'll say this. I could see that happening in a couple of years, especially if his brother extends long-term in Dallas and it doesn't seem like he's going to be a fit in Pittsburgh. I could see that happening, but I think you're dead on about they just got him. They just signed him. Dubas believes in his potential. And for now, I believe in his potential. I think he's finally in a situation where he'll have an opportunity to rise up the lineup, unlike he did in Toronto, which was both his issue and just the overall issue. You look at the top six in Toronto, there was really no room for him. While there's not a ton of room for him here, it's a lot more plausible that the guys in the top six with this team either underperform or get moved, considering where the Penguins are right now.
Yeah, I understand that aspect, especially just with the whole rumors still surrounding Rust, Raquel. I just don't think they're going to go away, at least for a little bit. There's another comment here from Blake. Says, honestly, I'm most excited to see Kindle play up as the second line center and see what he can do with Malkin and Chinakhov. I don't think that's going to happen just yet. I think Tommy Novak has the inside track to get that position, but I do think during the season you could potentially see at least a few reps there with Kindle, Malkin, and Chinakhov. I don't think it's going to be on a full-time basis. I still think it's going to be Novak, but I do think you could see some reps there with Kindle. I still see him as more of the third line center throughout most of the year.
And I could see that as a late game situation. Either they're up big, down big, and Muse just says, you know what? I'm going to try some stuff. We're not winning or we're not losing this game. I'm going to try some stuff. And you know what? Let's see what Benny can do at 2C and give him a handful of shifts with those two. And I could see it happening if they catch fire. If all of a sudden there's elite level chemistry with the three of them, you would have no problem swapping Novak and Kindle. But I think you're right for now. When we get into camp, the inside track is Tommy Novak is 2C, Ben Kindle is 3C.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I still do think long-term Kindle is the 2C. They're just not going to give it to him right away. But hey, I do think he'll take at least some reps there. And then finally, he does ask, what happens with Elmer Soderblom and Hendrix Lapierre? They're kind of just there at this point. Elmer, I actually do think, has an inside track to get that spot on the fourth line next to Connor Dewar and Blake Lizotte. That's just my opinion on that. I think he has a better shot at getting it right now than Justin Brazeau, but you have to see what happens during camp. Hendrix Lapierre, yeah, that one in, like, at the time, I kind of just thought of it as whatever. Looking at it now, you know, in a way it is kind of whatever, but also at the same time, where does he fit for this year? Is he kind of just a 13th or 14th forward? Still have to see what happens at camp. He's going to have to earn everything. I don't think he's bad or anything like that, but I'm just curious to see what his role will be this year. But I disagree with Elmer, though. I think he has the inside track to get a fourth line spot as the 12th forward.
I do too. And I'll say what I said about Lapierre when they got him. That's just injury insurance. Like, he'll be a 13th, 14th forward. He'll probably spend some time in Wilkes. When there's injuries, trades, or underperformances, he'll come up and play. If he blows everybody away, that'll be good problem to have. But at the end of the day, he strikes me as depth and somebody that you have for insurance. Let's finish up with this one because it's a two-parter and it's a very fun one. This comes from Stereo Penguin 66. They say, I've got two questions. I'm not from Pittsburgh, and every season we try to visit the Penguins in a new city. If you had the budget, where would you like to see the Penguins play? Also, we are coming into Pittsburgh this season. Where are some good places to eat near the arena before or after games? Let's tackle the second one, because we've done that a million times. You got to check out Super Bowl right across from PPG if you've never been there on a game day, packed with Penguins fans. It's the place to be. There was also a commenter that replied, which is always my suggestion. Use the T, which is the underground subway, the light rail from Market Square back to Fifth Ave, because Market Square completely revitalized, bunch of new spots, a lot of fun there, including Permanis if you've never been, which is always a staple. As for where I would want to see the Penguins, I'm going to kind of cheat the question and not pick one, but three. I would love to do the California road trip. I would love to do LA, San Jose, Anaheim, see them in those three. But if I have to pick one, it's beyond the obvious. Montreal.
Yeah.
I would love to see them in the Mecca of hockey.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That was going to be one of my three answers. I'd say for the other two, you might be surprised by these. Vancouver, because I've always wanted to go to Vancouver, and the scenery out there is gorgeous. I just want to go for a drive around there because it's absolutely beautiful. And honestly, I would do Vegas because that whole thing is a spectacle. Like, I would love to go. I've been to Vegas yet. I turned 29 in 3 months. I have not been to Vegas yet. Once I finish up this wedding here, recoup some of the money that I've been putting into this thing, I'd like to go to Vegas over the next year or two and watch the Penguins there. That would be so much fun just because it's a whole spectacle at the beginning. It's really just a show, honestly, and that team is also really good. So that's a good one. That arena looks awesome. Montreal, for obvious reasons, just because the Bell Center is gorgeous. And then I would put Vancouver up there as well. Going off the other question, I'd say Milano's, which is down there too. My friends and I have gone there before games. A lot of fun. You can get a picture or two, get some food before the game. A lot of fun. And for your Market Square comment, forgot City Works, man. Go there and get some decent food. Some people crap on that place. I understand. I personally happen to like it. So those are a couple other recommendations as well that I would give.
Yeah, those are all very good suggestions. And I got to give a quick shout out to Hunter because he graciously is allowing me to do this. I'm going to spend the last minute doing something a little bit personal here. If you know me, you know today, August 14th, is a tough day for me. 17 years ago, my dad passed away unexpectedly about a few weeks before I was supposed to go to college, but I just wanted to use this space to tell him, hey, I miss you. I love you. Thank you for everything you taught me, whether it was being my hockey coach for more than a decade, for being the guy that as I was a teenager would argue about the Penguins with. I remember telling you Jordan Staal was going to make the team and you disagreed with me. I'll never forget that one. But at the end of the day, man, I know that I'm hoping I'm making him proud. I know if he was still around, he would be listening to this show every single day and calling me to tell me how stupid I am for working in this business in his footsteps, because he said, don't be an idiot like me, actually go out and make money. And I said, you know what? I'd rather do something I enjoy and have enough money to live than have a bunch of money and be miserable. But always a tough day for me, for my family. I know you guys listen as well. I love all of you. I know how tough today is, but we will get through it. We have been able to persevere through the last 17 years, as tough as it has been. We love you, Dad. We miss you, and we'll see you soon. But that is going to do it for the Friday edition of Locked On Penguins. Hunter and I will be back with a brand new episode for you on Monday. Hopefully we get some news over the weekend, but if not, we'll still be back anyway, because that's just what we do here. But for now, for Hunter Hodes, I am Patrick Damp. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we will talk to you again on Monday.